Hello everyone. In this video, let's see how we can interact with Serverpod using Postman. So let's create a Serverpod project and use Postman to interact with that. Our Serverpod project is now created, and now let's bring up the database and Redis using Docker Compose up so that we can able to start our Serverpod without any troubles. Now let's see how we can create a Postman file based on the Serverpod endpoint file example endpoint dot which is created by the serverpod, and in this we'll use this endpoint to make our first request from the postman. So the thing is we have to ignore the endpoint name from the class. So if it is an example endpoint, ignore the endpoint and just consider the example. So this is our URL localhost slash example, which is the prefix before the endpoint. Now in the body, let's select JSON and we'll send the content in it. So the first thing we have to add in this is method. So this basically says which method we have to call in the endpoint class. So let's go to the endpoint class, and here we have this hello method, and this is the method name. So we have to pass this method name in the JSON. So let's wrap that in a double quotes and we'll pass that name. Next we have to pass the parameters. So here we have a parameter which is session that will be handled by the server and we no need to worry about that. Next we have a name which is of type string. So we have to pass this name in the JSON and we have to pass the value for that. Let's copy this and we'll use that in the JSON and we'll pass a value to it. Since it is a string, we'll pass a string. So that's the value. I'm sending my name. Now let's try to send this request. So we used a wrong port and it's not listening in that port. So port listens in 8080. So let's change that and we'll now send this. So see, we are able to see the output and it's hello Ajay. So our example endpoint, which is created by serverpod, is just going to append hello with the name which we are providing. So that's why we are getting this output. Now let's try to create one more endpoint, which is to-do endpoint, and we'll use different types of data types and we'll pass an object in the body. So first let's create a to-do class. So we create that by creating a to-do.yaml file, and serverpod is going to generate all the necessary classes and functionality we need for that. So let's create a to-do and let the table name be to-do, and we'll add the fields. Sorry, let's add the fields, and the fields or will have a title in it, and after title what we can add is let the title have a data type of string, and we can also add is completed, a property which holds whether this to do is completed or not. So let it be a boolean, and we'll create a timestamp. Let it be created time, and we have datetime as the data type for this. So serverpod supports datetime also. So next we have a description. So the description is going to be a string. So that's it. So this is our sample class, and now we'll use serverpod generate to create this class. So the to-do class is now generated. Now what we can do is let's create a to-do endpoint so that we can create an endpoint and we can interact with it using the postman. So let's name it as to-do's endpoint, So let's create a to-dos endpoint class which extends endpoint. So this is our class, and we'll create a method to create a to-do, and we'll make it as future void, and we'll create a name, create to-do. So this is the name of the function, and we'll pass the session. So this is going to be taken care by the server, and next we'll pass to do, and we'll name it as new to do. So this is the parameter which needs to be passed to the function. So next we have to add this to do. So let's use the serverpod generator insert method, and we'll pass the parameter new to do to insert that to the database. So we have passed new to do. So the method is now completed. Let's use serverpod generator to create the endpoints. So our endpoints are created, and we have the table dot SQL file, sorry, the pgsql. For the Postgres, let's copy this, and we'll use this in the pgadmin to create the tables. So you can use any tools. I'm using pgadmin. So we used and created the tables. So that's it from the serverpod side. Let's go to Postman. So we'll create a new request, and we'll name it as create to do, and here we have to pass the URL. So what we can do is we can make it as localhost, since our server is running on localhost. Mark it as localhost, and the port is 8080, and our endpoint is to do's. As I said before, we need to ignore the endpoint in the class name, and we just have the to do's. So slash to do's. So that's our endpoint. Let's save this, and we'll go to the body, and in the body, so as I said you before, we can use either get or post. Anything is going to work, but following post is somewhat I prefer, as it says we are passing something in the body. So let's try to use it in this and check whether it's working or not. So the method we have to call is create to do, that's in the endpoint, and the parameter session is going to take by the servpod, and the to do object we have to pass, and its name is new to do. So let's use this in the JSON, and for new to do we have to pass a map which as the to do. So here in to do you can see we have the, let's go to we have this ID which is going to be taken care by the serverpod, and we no need to pass this. And next we have this title. Let's create a title. So the title is what we can keep. So let it be create a serverpod and Postman video. So this is the title, and next we have is completed. So is it completed? No, it's not completed. So what we can do is let's pass that is completed in the JSON, and we'll make it as false. So next we have created time, and for created time we have to pass the datetime object. So you can just refer this to pass a datetime object, or you can have your own datetime object. Make sure it's getting converted to the dart. So you can follow this format so that you won't face any trouble. So description will have it as create YouTube video. So that's the description. Now let's try to send this request. Okay, so let's see. So we have null, but the status is 200 because we are not returning anything from the serverpod. Now let's check in the database. So in the database, we are able to see the record in the database. So our create to do is working perfectly. So now let's write one more method and we'll name it as get all to do. So ignore the error message which is in the output. That's happened when I was recording without adding the to do table. But we covered that in the tutorial, so you won't face that issue. So here we have a get to do method which is going to return all the to do in the database. So we have find by ID. You can create a method which you gets the ID and returns that to do. But for this example, we'll use find, which is going to return all the to do present in that table. So that's it. So here we have this expression like where. So in where you can specify a logic and it will return only to which satisfies that condition. So we are not going to pass anything here. So since we don't have any conditions, it's going to return all the to do. So let's create a serverpod generate. Sorry, we can run the serverpod generate. So it creates the endpoint with the new method which we included. So let's restart the serverpod. So now it's up and running. Let's try in Postman. So let's create a new request to get the to-dos and we'll name it as get all to do and the URL is going to be the localhost port 8080 and to-dos. So remember we are using post as we are passing something in the body. Even the get is going to work but we'll stick with the post method. So people who are not aware of Postman also will understand what the request is doing. So now we'll pass the method. So the method name is get all to do. So that's the method name and we have something here. Look, we are able to fetch all the records from the table. So now let's edit this to do with something a different one so that we can see whether the newly created to do is coming or not. So we'll just add to at the end of the title and the description and we'll send this record again. So we got 200 as a response. Now when we get all the to dos we are able to see the new one. Like this you can also pass a complex object in the body. So here let's see an author which has books in the body, which is book is also an individual data type, a custom object, and it's been passed as a list. What I will do is I will link this in a GitHub page and I will post that so you can take a reference.